Brian, it's awesome to have you here. You made it here straight from the airport, and then you just did South by, so I seriously appreciate the energy coming in. Like I said earlier, I'd had to go to the hotel room and take a breather, so we have all the biohacking stuff in the background ready to go.
Oh yeah, I'm all ready to go. I did my little pre-interview routine straight from the airport. I'm ready to go.
So you said that this is a role reversal, that you were just bringing all your equipment. You've been filming Food Lies. Is that done yet or almost done? I know you said you were kind of like shopping it.
Yeah, it's been 6 years. We're done filming, supposedly, but we always keep adding things. We did 10 interviews in 10 days that ended 2 weeks ago. So I got back from that and then did South by for another 10 days. And then I came here the day after South by.
Has the, I guess, feedback been so far with the film? Because when I saw it, I was like, this is not like anything anyone's doing right now. And it's like contrary to like a lot of the popular evidence. And we can definitely get into like all the research that you're doing. I saw this video clip where you were saying how cows are actually like saving the planet and they're good for the planet. I was like, no one is saying that. And just debunking all of these common myths around diet.
Yeah, I actually spoke at a food industry conference. It was a plant-based conference, and I was the only one. And my presentation, maybe the one you're talking about, was why we should be eating more meat, not less. Well, I've done multiple presentations. I said, yeah, cows are saving the world, which they are if you raise them properly. They actually, help the soil. They put carbon back in the soil. There's a lot of benefits to them. Plus, they provide great nutrition for humans. So, yes, very against the mainstream narrative. I mean, that's why it's called Food Lies, right? I have to go against all these lies we've been told for the past, 100 years, maybe more in the last 50 years. And it's turned into my life's work. I quit everything I was doing, quit my job 6 years ago. I've been doing this full time and just trying to make this 6-part series to show the world what real nutrition is, what are humans supposed to eat, where do we come from, why everything that they've been told is almost backwards. I feel like a lot of the world these days is sort of backwards, upside down worlds. Yeah.
So where or when did food become so political? Because that's the thing when you start researching diet, is you just see how much politics and identity is around it. So the timing of this podcast is quite literally perfect. So one of my best friends is going through like a really tough health issue right now. Like she's in and out of the hospital. She's been vegan for most of her, maybe like the last 7 years. And I've always kind of like nudged her to like, she'd get drunk and I'd make her eat like bone broth and she'd be like, oh, this is so good. And then be like pissed afterwards. But now she's dealing with all of these health issues. She can't even drink broth right now. She's so sick. And I sent her your videos. I sent you the debunked, a couple of your clips. And I just kind of put it out there. And I was like, I think you really need to introduce animal proteins into your diet. So that's going on with that side of like my relationships. Personally, I've had Graves' disease. I was diagnosed like 10 years ago, which is hyperthyroid autoimmune disorder. And then with my second, it flipped. So now I have Hashimoto's and I'm navigating that. What I think is so interesting is almost every new age doctor that's kind of removed themselves from the establishment, the first thing they tell me to do is up my red meat intake. And I think that's so fascinating. But again, they're not part of the conglomerate. Like they're very much the outliers on that.
Well, it sounds like you found some good doctors.
Yeah.
So congrats.
Yeah. Are you seeing that shift with your work? Like you're getting people that saw like maybe debunked and they're, revoking a vegan lifestyle, or they're saying this sounds like me?
So Game Changers debunked. Yeah, so Game Changers came out, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago. And it was a big vegan film. There was all these athletes claiming that they were doing great when actually a lot of them weren't doing great and dropped out or, got injured or even dropped out of the film. We actually interviewed one of the athletes, Tim Sheaf, who was called the Vegan Prince. And he just completely left veganism, left the film. They kept trying to get him back in the film, and then he filmed with me. I mean, this wasn't like a big film. We just put it out on YouTube, so people can find it. It was kind of just a fun project to debunk all the vegan stuff while I was making my main film. But I don't know. I don't think it's coming to the mainstream yet. I don't think this information is ready for the world. There's too many big industries, big money, big food companies, big governments even. I mean, even the WHO. I feel like the WHO is very anti-meat and that they have this agenda and there's a bigger agenda. And so I don't think this is going to go mainstream, but it's finding a cult following lately. So I think that's what you're finding. And it's great that you found these doctors that are going away from the mainstream narrative because they're hard to find. And So I'm finding this community in Austin. And so there are people who are just breaking free from the matrix. So I think it's getting huge, but then I leave and I realize that it's not.
It's like
Or
in that bubble.
yeah, if I leave my bubble, even my little bubble on East 7th Street, once I move out of that bubble, people are just like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you eat red meat? We all know that's bad for you.
So where did that stem from? Because what I was, and this is from something I either read or watched years ago, so it could be inaccurate, but it was saying that the campaign against red meat, specifically in saturated fat, was funded by Big Sugar.
Oh, so there is a story. So actually, the sugar industry paid off Harvard scientists pretty low amount. It was only equivalent of $50,000 back in, I don't know, 80s? Maybe it was before. This wasn't like the main thing, but this is something that happened, that they paid off these scientists to shift the blame away from sugar to fat. But it actually started before that. There's a whole story. There's a famous study called the 7th-Country Study, and there's a guy named Ansel Keys. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. So this is, for my little nutrition world, this is old news, and everyone's heard this story 1,000 times. But I think in the mainstream, it's a new story. It really started in the 50s. Actually, I want to go further back. I'm going to go further back later.
Okay.
We'll start with the 50s when President Eisenhower had a heart attack. So this was huge news, right? This was like the president, like he was gone. He was in the hospital. Like, this isn't a normal thing. It's also when people were smoking, like in elevators, they're smoking in cars with their babies in the back seat. Like, they were
Mad Men.
They were doing the Mad Men thing. They were drinking, right? Like Mad Men. They're just drinking nonstop. And the food processing was just beginning, right? The food processing really started after World War II, and they figured out how to preserve foods and have, more shelf life on these foods, and more seed oils. Seed oils were invented around 1914. Crisco, if people know the Crisco story, margarine, and they're like, oh, we can make fake butter, and it's supposed to be healthy for you. So this was just coming into the diet in a bigger way. And so I kind of just skipped ahead to what I think is the real problem, why he had a heart attack and why other people were just starting to get these cardiovascular diseases. But people didn't know why at the time. So there was one guy named Ansel Keys, and he was a scientist, and he had a, perfectly reasonable theory that it could be saturated fat and cholesterol. And if you eat cholesterol, and it goes into your arteries and clogs them. It's a very simple story that turned out to not be true. But it was his hypothesis. And then there was another guy, actually one of the main opponents of that was John Yudkin. And he said it was sugar and flour and oils, and that any time that these came in to a diet of a population, they got sick and they gained weight. And so it's these two opposing figures. And Ansel Keys, I guess the story goes, he was a more domineering guy. He was just had a bigger personality and just kind of just won through his personality, and also some of these spurious correlations where he famously looked at 22 different countries, and he was looking at the rate of heart disease and the rate of saturated fat that they ate. And he got rid of all the ones that didn't fit the line and had this perfect line of 7 countries that just said, oh, the more they eat, the more saturated fat, the more heart disease. And so that kind of stuck, even though when you put all 22 countries in, there was no strong correlation at all. And so there's a couple other things that went on that we're going to go into in the film. But basically, the government, the health people in the day just kind of went along with this. They're like, well, we got to do something because our nation is getting sicker. We're starting to have more cancer, more heart disease, more diabetes. These were new things. These chronic diseases weren't around that much back in the day. And so they're just like, well, let's everyone should cut their fat, right? It kind of made sense. They also did some studies on rabbits where they fed rabbits high cholesterol diets. So rabbits aren't supposed to eat meat or fat or cholesterol at all. They're supposed to eat like leaves and whatever.
Right.
So of course they didn't do well with that. And, they'd open up these arteries and they'd see cholesterol in the arteries. And they're like, oh, you can't, you just ate cholesterol and it just goes to your arteries. It's just not how the human body works.
Yeah, it's interesting when you do the animal studies and then compare it to people, because it's like if you're trying to find, you can interpret data however you want, right? No matter what team you're on. But if something happens in a rat, then immediately everyone's like, this is going to cause cancer in people because it caused cancer in a rat. But then conversely, rats are not people. So how do you know what to take from the data and not if we're not doing human studies?
So that's a big problem because we can't do all the human studies we want to do. It's impossible, either by it's too expensive or you just can't lock humans in a metabolic ward and study them for 30 years or 50 years. Like you can, do the whole rat's life. We do some of these studies and they do help. So it's supposed to be where you do these big kind of correlational studies where you look at what people ate and then you draw some more conclusions and they're like, okay, let's study this further, right? And then you can do some more interventional studies or double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, and then you can start coming to some real conclusions. But that's not how science has been done lately. They kind of just go straight from here's some correlations to this is what we should all do. And that's kind of what happened back in the day is they're just like, well, let's start cutting out fat from our diet. It makes sense. Fat makes you fat, And then that kind of opened the door to this whole processed food industry. And then there was all these low-fat products. And, we kind of skip ahead to 1980 that's when the food pyramid was released. And it was just 7 to 11 servings of grains and, meat and fat went way up to the top. But, you're supposed to not eat it very much. And then look what happened.
That's so interesting. It seems like it's one of those things that's just been around forever. Like you don't realize that there was like a person or maybe a group of people that said this is the way that you're supposed to eat and try to dictate that to everyone. Like one diet is a one size fit all for everyone, which I can't stand. I think that's my biggest pet peeve with anything, whether it's like medical advice or diet advice. It's not taking account like the individuality of everyone and like the biodiversity that we have. So to be like, strictly cut out all of the, like basically become vegan, this is great, or take this medicine, this is going to be great for everyone. Well, you're not accounting for the individuality here. And like, not everyone can have peanuts. You shouldn't be advising everyone to have peanuts. So yeah, that gets me going.
That's the hugest problem. Yeah. And there was also just food industry. Even back then, there was food industry lobbying and interest. Like we had all this corn, wheat, and soy, and there was big interest in pushing it and subsidizing. It's like, well, we have this corn, wheat, and soy. We have millions of acres in the U.S. Let's use it. And it's cheap, right? And so they did just give this one-size-fits-all thing to the world. Well, eventually the world, because whatever the U.S. does, the world kind of follows. But the dietary guidelines really were pushed out in 1980. And it's kind of funny when you look at these obesity statistics, it kind of just is going along slowly. And then 1980, it goes really sharp up right when they introduced all this stuff. It's like,
right.
They just told the world to eat this. And there's even more stories of how there wasn't supposed to be 7 to 11 servings of grains. And then we actually needed to feed the world with food stamps. So whatever the guidelines say, that's what nursing homes and hospitals and the military and public schools have to use these programs, and the food stamps program has to go by these guidelines.
Whoa.
And so they're kind of just like, well, wait a second, we're gonna have to pay for all this food, especially with the food stamp and all this, well, really all of them. And they thought, well, what could go wrong, right? It's like this whole idea of calorie is a calorie, which is another thing that we're debunking in the film, right?
Thank you for saying that. There's this guy, he was supposed to be on the podcast and he canceled, thank God, because his content lately, like I just fundamentally disagree with. And he rants about calorie deficit. It is only about calorie deficit. I'm like, you're not taking into account 1,000 different things. If it was as simple as long as I'm eating 1,500 calories, it doesn't matter if it's all ice cream or if it's all beef, that it's going to be the same. Absolutely not. Like there's your microbiome, huge indicator of like weight gain, right? Like I'm sure you're familiar with those studies where they took the, feces from an obese mouse, put it in, or rat, I never know which one, some rodent, put it into the slim one, and all of a sudden the slim one now it can't shed weight, right? You can't discount that, or mindset, which is huge. So Huberman was saying that a Stanford study, they had two milkshakes, like identical milkshakes, two groups. One group, they told them like, this is a milkshake, tons of sugar, tons of fat, it's a treat, enjoy it. The other one, they were like, this is a health drink, a protein drink, low cal, like all of the things. The glucose spike with the group that thought it was a health drink, almost nothing. The one that thought it was a milkshake, it was exactly what you would kind of anticipate. So there's all these other factors that go into like how our body digests food, and you cannot just say calorie deficit. Like you are so dumb if that is what you think.
Well, I'm glad you said it like that, because that's what I think. I've been arguing with these people for years, and it really annoys me. But imagine the entire U.S. government and health officials thinking that. And that's what happened. They just were like, well, calories are all the same. Like, yes, a beef calorie would just be like bread, some cheap bread that has almost no protein and no nutrients in it, white bread from the grocery store, doesn't matter. And they just thought about their budget and they just threw it out to the world, and look what happened. And I love that the details, the nuance of why a calorie is not a calorie. You can go with so many different levels. I like that you talk about even the mindset part, because that matters too. There's so many factors. I think the satiety factor is a big one too.
Mm-hmm.
So losing weight, most people want to lose some fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then there's a story of, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to lose muscle, or do you want to lose fat?
Right.
Right? That's a huge thing too, because a lot of these diets, if you're just cutting calories, you're just going to be cutting protein and nutrients along with your calories, and then you're going to be losing muscle mass. There is a good study, college-aged females, they gave one group adequate protein and one less, or it was, adequate and one was less. And they both did the same exercise. And I don't remember if it was at 8 weeks, they both lost the same amount of weight on the scale. But then they did a DEXA scan, and the group with the protein kept almost all of their muscle mass and lost only fat almost. The other group lost way more muscle mass and way less fat. So that matters most. So when you're talking about calories, there's a whole hierarchy of what matters. Number one is it protein calorie or is it an energy calorie? And energy would be fat or carbs, right? So that matters most. And then there's all these other factors that matter below that, which is, well, the satiety thing is what I brought up. Losing weight, losing fat is a battle of hunger, basically, right? It's like everyone wants to eat less, but why can't everyone just eat less?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're hungry. Right? This is the simplest concept that somehow these calorie bros never consider. Because I'm like, okay, well, I can make you a calorie. Give me a piece of paper and I'll make you a diet. And I'm just going to make it arbitrarily 1,200 calories. And yes, you would lose weight if you just ate these 1,200 calories. But that's not saying what would happen to your body, your health, your immune system, your muscle mass, all these things. It wouldn't say how full you were, right? You could eat 1,200 calories and be absolutely starving. You'd be miserable. And you would not stick to it, which is what happens with most people, right? 95% or whatever of diets fail. But if I gave you 1,200 calories of beef or liver, well, not all liver, but if I made you like a really good diet that's full of protein and nutrients and like very little energy, I mean, this would be an extreme case. If you wanted to really cut weight, I would put you on, I would give you, I don't know. Yeah, we talked about bone broth, right? Have some bone broth, have some meat, have some liver just for those extra nutrients, and you could be full off of 1,200 calories and you could lose fat. But that's not in the discussion of calorie counting.
No, because we're obsessed with numbers, which is why I don't know if the name of the drug, is it Ozempa or what's it called? Ozempa, yeah. And it was something like 30% of the weight that you're losing is like bone mass.
It's lean body mass.
What?
Yeah.
Are you talking about? Arguably, you want to look good, quote, because I don't think that looks good or healthy, but you want to look like a skeleton. But then what's going to happen when you're in your 50s or your 60s and you need your bone density? Like, that is crazy to me. And that's the examples that we're propping up of like what a healthy body is. So it's funny because so many people get on the rage train when people put like a plus size model on the cover of Sports Illustrated, but like no one is arguing that now that, the Kardashians look like a skeleton due to a drug, that's also a problem, right? Like it's like both are unhealthy. So
super big problem. And we actually do this in episode 1 of our film. We go into this of that it matters. You can be thin and unhealthy. You can be obese and unhealthy. There's so much to it. And the number one thing you want as you age is you're right on. You want muscle mass. You want bone density. You want strength. Like all the big guy, Dr. Peter Thiel, like that's what they're talking about. That's the number one thing they talk about is you need muscle mass and strength into your old age. You break a hip, you can't support yourself, you fall, you wither away quickly, you die. And so any diet that is not supporting that is not good. So one thing we disentangle is that you can't just, there's a difference between short-term and long-term too. It's like, yeah, you could lose weight on Twinkies. There's a professor that famously ate Twinkies for a month and lost weight.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's so stupid. I mean, he did it to kind of show how stupid it was.
Yeah.
He's like, of course, no one should do this. Of course, I was starving the whole time. Of course, I got no nutrients. Of course, I had no protein. But it's possible. That doesn't mean that it's good. Like a juice fast. It's like yes, you can do a juice fast and lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be good. You may just be losing muscle.
Mm-hmm.
You may just be bouncing back and gaining all the weight back once you're done with that quick fix.
If that happens, does that kind of mean the fast was kind of like null, like it wasn't worth doing? So a lot of those fast or fast mimicking diets, they'll say you'll lose, 5 to 7 pounds in the week, but then you almost always gain it back. But they argue that like your cellular age decreases, and I don't know how much truth or science is to that.
So there's a lot to it. I mean, if you're talking about fasting mimicking diet or Walter Longo, okay, there's a lot to that. So you can fast in a healthy way too. You can do fasting and support your lean body mass and support and have enough protein where, depending on if you do intermittent fasting or you do like longer term fasting, but then it matters what you're gonna refeed with after that. And if you're refeeding with quality animal foods and you're getting your protein, and you can be perfectly fine. And then yes, maybe you can help your mitochondria and like get that like biological age to have some benefits there with some fasting, and then you can maybe gain that weight back and still be fine. But most people don't do that. They just will gain more weight back or just refeed, start eating a normal diet again. And then I don't think it's doing anything. It's just making it worse. There's the idea that yo-yo dieting is actually making things worse. Every time you lose weight and you go on these yo-yos and come back, it's harder to keep the weight off, which they showed in the Biggest Loser studies too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The Biggest Loser, they did a retrospective study. They had all these people over all these years lose all this weight, and they found that the vast majority gains way more weight back. And there's some other research too of just your body has a set point too, and it wants to come back to this weight. So actually,
for like survival purposes,
pretty much your body is trying to hold on to this set point of that you've created. So actually, the best thing to do, I know this probably is stupid advice to someone, is never get fat in the first place, right? Because once you get there, it's way harder to get back. But there are ways, if you do diets correctly, to lose weight, and you can kind of support yourself and lower your body's set point gradually by doing it correctly, right? Where you won't just bounce back up.
So is it true that you never get rid of the fat cell? It essentially just shrinks, and then that's why it's easy to put the weight back on?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, yeah. To go into the fat cell stuff, actually, I want to go back to that, because you could be thin and unhealthy, or you could be overweight and unhealthy. It's down to the fat cells. So it's called, like, visceral fat is the bad fat. So subcutaneous fat is the fat like around your waist that you can pinch, right? You can pinch your stomach. But visceral fat's inside. It's in and around your organs. What's interesting is people have different abilities. They have different genetic ability to gain more subcutaneous fat before they start gaining the visceral fat, the bad fat. So India and China are famously thin, right? They are pretty thin on average, right? They have a low BMI. I looked at the rankings. They are very thin on average, yet they have the most diabetes in the world.
I didn't know that either.
Number 1 and number 2. Well, they have a lot of people, but they also are number 1 and 2 in diabetes, and they have a lot of stroke, a lot of type 2 diabetes, right? These problems with sugar, metabolism problems, right? So you can be thin and you can be unhealthy, and you could be overweight and be unhealthy. There are some people who can be kind of overweight and still healthy, right? So these maybe your NFL athletes, right? They're working out a lot. They have a lot of subcutaneous fat. They're just big fellas. But maybe they don't have that much visceral fat, and they have good blood markers. And, if they went to the doctor, they're like, hey, you're metabolically healthy. And that's great. They are, right? They are doing a lot of work. And that's not the normal person, right? Those aren't those obese women they put on the swimsuit issue saying, ooh, fat's great. This is awesome. You're super healthy. That's scientifically not true. You look at the literature, it's like all pretty much as you go up in weight, it's a linear curve of how many diseases or how your life is shortened, the more excess weight you have.
So when it comes to the visceral fat, I feel like that's probably a really tricky one for a lot of people. Are there ways that you find target that specifically, like whether it's like a workout regime or a specific diet? Like, is there a difference between men and women?
Yes. So there's a great guy named Dr. Sean O'Mara. He's a friend of mine. We're trying to get him in the film. He's obsessed with visceral fat. He actually just went on some Fox News show, like early morning thing, and actually started talking about it, which is cool because no one talks about visceral fat, especially the mainstream media. And his interventions, which I do and I agree with, are eliminating processed foods, sprinting, and lifting weights. Those are his main interventions. That doesn't mean, doing yoga or other things aren't great. It's just to lose visceral fat, those are most effective techniques. Sprinting.
Sprints suck.
I would
You like 'em?
way rather sprint. I think jogging is for the birds. Jogging, I would never jog. I would do anything in the world, any type of exercise before jogging. I think sprinting is the most effective and efficient thing you could do. I think it's fun. Maybe that's just because I grew up sprinting.
I guess so. Yeah. I would rather do anything than cardio. Any kind of cardio is just kills my soul.
Well, cardio isn't that effective. I think it's not a good way to lose weight at all. I think it's not even that necessary. I think you could lift weights or do play sports or do any other type of exercise, and you will still get cardiovascular, improvements from it. But you can get cardio work just from lifting weights.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And so, yeah, I don't think cardio is that great. Just steady state cardio, I don't think that's great. You could do joint damage. You can actually have high CRP, the C-reactive protein. There's an inflammation marker. Like
really?
If you overtrain, a lot of these marathoners, they have really bad CRP, which is a really bad marker for health and shows that your body's inflamed.
Whoa.
Your body is just breaking itself down. They have joint pain. A lot of them have gut pain too, or gut issues, digestive issues from partly because they're carb loading and eating, all kinds of trash basically. And I think that's just not what humans are meant to do. I think humans are meant to sprint or walk or climb or lift things. Like I went to Africa 2 years ago for the film.
That part of the intro is great.
Yeah, the opening shot is me with the Maasai kids running in the field. How did I end up here?
Yeah.
People got to watch that. Go to YouTube, Food Lies. Yeah. No, it's a great intro. It's 3.5 minutes. It tells a lot of my story and what we're going to talk about in the film. But yeah, I went with these Hadza. These are the hunter-gatherers, right? They're still doing it. These guys, they're not going for jogs. They're doing long walks. They're sprinting. They are climbing. They are, getting food. And this is, I think, ancestrally consistent with how we could still live.
So when it comes to the inflammation markers and doing something like extended cardio or like through running, I guess, is that similar to like the cortisol effects that a lot of women have with workouts? Because I heard that if you're a woman specifically, that you should be doing more like gentle movements instead of things that are like HIIT, because we're more sensitive to cortisol. So then that like puts on more weight. Is that a false?
I don't know. Don't quote me on this part. Yeah. I'm not like the doctor that's going to get into that detail of male versus female stuff like that. But I think any human can do normal amount of lifting weights or HIIT. I think maybe people get carried away. I think anything in excess is going to put on more, too much wear and tear. Like even sauna, cold plunge. We were talking about that before. That's great. Unless you're doing it every day or way too long, right? And you're just going too hardcore. That's just going to be a stressor on your body. So yes, there are differences between men and women. And yeah, I don't think women should be fasting so much. Right?
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to ask too, is with the fasting, because all the data on it the studies have been done on men. So we can't say that that's necessarily going to cross over or have the same benefits. And we naturally are supposed to have more fat. Like we are supposed to make babies. So what's good for you is not necessarily good for me. So then we see this Gwyneth Paltrow interview going viral. I don't know if you saw it over the last couple days, but she's there and they're like, tell us about what you eat in a day, or like, what's it look like? Because you obviously look amazing and you're in your 50s, and she does. She looks amazing. But she's like, well, I don't eat for like 12 or 16 hours, and then I wake up and I do the sauna and I do some yoga, and then I might have some bone broth or maybe some soup and like some veggies, and that's my day. And I'm like, that is not attainable for almost anyone, nor does that sound like an enjoyable life to me.
You are correct. I've seen a lot of females in my years of doing this stuff. Again, I'm not the doctor, but I interview all the doctors that agree with this stuff. And that, yes, women have different phases they have to go through, and they can be maybe wanting to eat more carbs during different times of their cycle, and it can support them and their thyroid health and their metabolic health. And there's a lot to it. And yes, that is a way to do it. Yes, you can lose a lot of weight doing what Gwyneth Paltrow does, but that doesn't mean everyone should do it, right? You don't have to do it for so long. I'm really into this idea of like, just because something works doesn't mean it's good. Just because you do it doesn't mean everyone has to do it. Or just because you find success with it doesn't mean you have to do it for life. Like there's all these carnivore people. I'm
Yeah.
friends with all those carnivores. You know these carnivore guys. Like there's Paul Saladino, there's Sean Baker. There's a lot of these guys. Well, Paul Saladino, carnivore MD, stopped. He was doing the full carnivore and he had some problems, right? He talked about them publicly. And then he added a lot of fruit and honey and other things back
Dairy
into his
too,
diet.
like raw
and
dairy, yeah.
Yeah. And then he's doing a lot better. And I've followed his journey too. I've been friends with him for like 5 years. So I've seen the whole thing and he's doing better. And I'm glad he's changed because just because it worked for him in the beginning and it helped get rid of his eczema. Like he talks about this, right? He did so well and he cleared up these issues, right? And maybe, he had a gut thing going on and he cleared up his gut issues by going very carnivore, nose to tail, like the organs, like it's great. But then you don't have to do it for life. Then he's like, okay, now I'm surfing in Costa Rica every day. I can eat the fruit and the honey and the raw milk and it's great. So I think, okay, I thought of this yesterday. There's like, the 3D chess. There's like 4D chess.
4D chess.
4D chess. Well,
I don't know
okay.
about
So
4D
1D, yeah, 4D. I'm not going to go to 4D. 1D chess is just following the guidelines. They're like, oh, fat's bad, right? So this is or eat less, move more. That's just not a good thing and it doesn't work. 2D chess is when they're like, wait, I'm going to go against the guidelines. I'm going to eat only animal foods and I'm going to get healthy, or I'm going to fast every day and do all these things. And that's worked for me. Even vegans, like I went vegan. I felt amazing. There's reasons why you cut out all these things from your diet. You stopped eating trash. So yes, I get it. So that's 2D. You have to go to 3D chess where you're like, so why did those diets work? Like zoom out. Like this, it's not just that everyone has to do this certain thing that worked for you. You need to understand why different diets can work and why different diets don't work and why do we need protein and nutrients. And that's what we're trying to do in the film. That's actually had my own journey in 6 years making this film where I was in the 2D chess world where I thought I knew it all because I did it and I did this way of eating and it worked for me. And all the doctors I was interviewing echoed that and they said it was great. And then I realized that different diets can work. I zoomed out. You have to go into that 3D chess land of like, what is actually going on, right? It's like, if you understand food, then you can, if you understand really the human body and why things work, then you don't have to be stuck in like, this is my diet, or I have to fast, or this is that. You realize that there are principles and there are things that each diet can leverage to make it work. So this is the ultimate goal, is to understand things at that level, and then you won't be stuck in this thing where I have to only drink bone broth and eat for 4 hours a day.
So in my experience, anytime in the past where I tried to like totally eliminate an entire food group, I felt like my body didn't know how to handle that. So when I first was diagnosed with endometriosis, like I was like 19 and I had this health food, not even doctor, but like chiropractor. And she's like, get rid of all of the animal stuff, go vegetarian. So I did that for a few years. And I feel like when I went to reintroduce meat, it was really hard. My body's like, what do I do with this? So I feel like it's the same if you were to totally get rid of carbs and go totally keto, or if you're doing carnivore and just doing meat. And they're getting popularized, obviously, because like the huge personas that are advocating for them. But like some of these people had serious health issues and literally can't eat anything else. So maybe don't do it unless that is the camp that you fall into. Because what happens if you do have adverse reactions, or your body's like, I need something more than just steak or something more than just lamb. Now you eat something, your body doesn't know what to do with it, and you start packing on weight. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Michaela Peterson is maybe who you're referencing.
Yeah.
She's in the film too. I mean, actually, I interviewed her. We don't know who's in the final cut yet. But yeah, I've been following her journey, and I heard her say recently, she said if she could, she would be adding a lot more foods back in. She does not want to only eat beef and lamb and salt.
Yeah. Sounds terrible.
Yeah. And so I'm glad she's saying that message, because for a while it seemed like she was just saying, hey, this is what is awesome. She never said, you got to do this. She's like, this is what works for me. But now I think the evolved message is, this is what I'm doing now because I have to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, if you cut out meat for a long time, you can lose stomach acid. Like you need this, there's certain, even gut microbiome, like you have these microbes that feed on certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get rid of them, then you're not going to have that species of gut bacteria anymore.
So how does that work? So we recently did those. Are you familiar with Viome, those gut tests?
Yeah.
So we did those. My husband's came back, and maybe he's gonna get annoyed that I'm sharing this, but it basically told him to cut out all meat except for dark meat chicken and I think lamb. Those are the only two things, because they were saying his biome doesn't have the acid, I guess, and like certain bacteria to break down meat and then to like potentially reintroduce it in 60 days. But I feel like that's going to exacerbate the problem or make, again, reintroducing the meat more difficult. So do you have any like experts that you've talked to about something like that?
Yeah, I don't like some of those tests because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just sort of
Mm-hmm.
this one size fits all. They're like, okay, well, we just made these conclusions based on, your genetics or this one panel. I just think that never works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think it would make it harder. If you need to, I would say just add it in smaller amounts, and then you can get those new microbes back. I mean, yes, you can. There's so many different ways to do it. You don't want to just
Just
get rid
totally
of
get rid
things.
of it.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, if you saw my list, it's pretty much all produce. It's like, don't have any of this. So I can have all the meat I want pretty much. I think there's like maybe some things that I don't eat that are just already on there, but like tomatoes, cauliflower, like everything. I'm like, well, am I doing carnivore? Because I don't want to do that.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't suggest that either. Never been a carnivore person.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, I mean, I do understand like tomatoes are nightshades, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't do well with nightshades, or maybe a lot of people don't do well with nightshades,
Mm-hmm.
or oxalates, like spinach, almonds, chocolate. Like a lot of these foods have high oxalates. I actually had some trouble with oxalates because fell into this thing. I don't remember which years in my health journey where I was drinking the spinach and kale shakes every day, and I thought it was so great. And then I had all these problems from it, and I cut
Yeah,
them.
what did that look like? Like, what are some symptoms to know if
Skin
you're sensitive?
problems. Yeah, like skin problems. Like I had like red, itchy, like on stuff on my face. Like just all these small things. I didn't really know what was going on, and then they started to go away once I stopped eating it.
Hmm.
But I think it was really attacking my gut and just oxalates. So if people don't know, oxalates are these spiky little crystals that are in certain foods, and people who have kidney stones, most of the time it's calcium oxalate. Calcium oxalate is what kidney stones are, and most of the time it's from eating high oxalate foods, right? Or your body not being able to deal with the oxalates. Maybe you don't have the right stuff, gut bacteria to deal with them. But there's more issues that could be causing it. But basically, the oxalate crystallizes, and so people know passing a kidney stone is not fun, right? It's a spiky thing that has to exit your
Oof.
body. And I had told this story before. I cut out oxalates for 2 years after I finally realized that I was drinking these oxalate smoothies every day, which is not good, like hundreds of times what your body needed. 2 years, I cut them out, and then I had one of these super greens, these type of like green smooth like powders.
So is it in those powders too? Like those green powders?
Yeah, I think that's just an oxalate bomb.
Really? I
Yes.
should
So
unsubscribe because it's
I don't want to name any company's
Yeah.
name. Maybe it's not for everyone, but maybe these things build up and you don't know it. I
Yeah.
think. But so this is what happened to me. So 2 years, no oxalates. Then one of these companies sent it to me. They're like, "Oh, here's some meat. Here's the powder." I drank it. I eat the same thing every day. So this was the only thing that changed in my diet. This one day, drank it. In the middle of the night, I woke up and like had like a kidney stone, basically. Well, like
Oh
a
my
small.
gosh.
It was so painful, just peeing fire. Like it was crazy,
Whoa.
and it was just the oxalates. They call it oxalate dumping, where something like eating a whole bunch of oxalates like triggered my body to like release them all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's really no other explanation. This is the only time it's ever happened to me in my whole life. Was the one day that I had that green little powder.
Yikes.
So, and there's other stories. My friend Dr. Bill Schindler told it on my podcast. That he had these crazy eye problems. It manifests in all these different ways, but these crystals build up. So this is why these carnivore doctors are doing their thing. Like they get really into these plant anti-nutrients that no one knows about, and it lets people know that these exist. right? There are things. There's lectins and there's solanine and there's phytates, and like so many different plants could be harming you. Not saying that people should cut out plants. So back to you, not saying you should never eat those foods again, but maybe these cruciferous vegetables like kale and
Yeah, those were on
cauliflower.
there.
Yeah, I mean,
Spinach was on
these
there.
they have a fair amount of oxalates, but it's also just maybe too much fibrous stuff. It's like very aggravating, I think. And yeah, they plant anti-nutrients are a real thing. Plants don't want to be eaten. They have these chemicals, and so humans have spent all of history detoxifying plants. That's what we've done as humans, is figure out how to feed ourselves in whatever environment we're in. And most of the time that was animal foods, and we could always hunt or gather animal foods. And when we couldn't, we resorted to plant foods, and we had to figure out how to make them safer to eat. And there's the same guy, Dr. Bill Schindler, he actually travels around the world and studies cultures and how they prepare food, and figures out fermentation. Fermentation helps get rid of a lot of the anti-nutrients, and it actually helps with probiotics and helps you digest it better and all this stuff. They have, in Peru, they have this way of detoxifying the potatoes. They bury them underground or underwater for long periods of time to get rid of all these anti-nutrients that are in them. But nowadays, we don't do all these practices. There's modern processing techniques are not like our traditional processing techniques. The modern processing is just how fast and how cheap we can make something. And so his idea is that that's causing a lot of problems, right? That we're getting a lot of these plant anti-nutrients, like gluten. Gluten is a famous one of like that can like get into your gut and like go in between the membranes and cause problems. And if you ferment and you use the ancient grains, they don't have all these glutens.
Like sourdough, right?
Yes, he's big into like properly fermented sourdough from like real grain, not GMO like monocrop Monsanto wheat. He's talking about like ancient grains and properly fermenting it for 2 days or whatever, and then you can handle it. And a lot of people say, yes, when I eat that bread, I feel fine. Or a lot of people that go to Europe,
I hear that.
I feel fine. Yeah.
So is there an argument that having these, like, whether it's lectins or what are they, the oxalates, in small doses is training your body how to problem solve them? Or is it kind of just stacking up and then eventually you have a surplus and then you have a kidney stone?
So this is theoretical, but my understanding after interviewing so many people is that we used to eat seasonally, and this was totally fine if you eat something seasonally. If for 2 months a year we had a bunch of oxalates, we found some sort of ancient spinach and we ate it, we were good because your body can detoxify it, get rid of it for the rest of the year. But now we're doing that year round, and people are eating these giant spinach salads or spinach and kale shakes every day. And so your body doesn't have a way of detoxifying it, getting rid of it. So yeah, I think you should be able to eat a bit of oxalate. Right? Some of the carnivore people, their solution is to just get rid of it all.
Right.
And I don't think that's a good solution. The good solution is to be mindful and realize that we have to be eating seasonally, or at least thinking about the dosage.
Yeah, and then you brought up the point of how to prepare the food too, which I think is great and lost on so many people because A, we're not cooking, and B, we're not passing recipes down to the younger generation. So like one example is rinsing your white rice. So when I was little, I never really knew why my grandma did that. I just thought it was like an extra step that just if you're lazy, skip it, just throw it in the rice cooker and it's fine. But what I learned, and especially through like a lot of the baby books when you're like making baby food, is they highly emphasize rinsing the rice because you're actually removing like over I think with white rice it's like 80% of the arsenic that's in it. So like that's just in it from the soil. So you absolutely need to be doing that, or combining rice and beans is supposed to take some of the load off of the lectins. I don't know if that's true or not, but like that was one of the reasons.
Well, combining rice with beans usually is done to get a full amino acid profile. So if you're not eating enough meat, people can survive off rice and beans because they don't have the full proteins, amino acids, but together they kind of do, but it's still not good. But for lectins, it's more about pressure cooking the beans.
Okay.
So if you pressure cook beans and cook them properly, you can get rid of lectins. But yeah, that's why.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was some kind of reason.
Yeah.
See, it proving my own point.
There's something.
Yeah.
Well, the main point is that humans have figured this stuff out over the centuries, right? Like we just instinctively knew to figure out wash the rice or put beans and rice together if that's all we had and we could get a more complete protein. Or, there's so many more examples. It's like we figured this stuff out. Even, Weston Price.
Cooking tomatoes is another one.
You could probably get rid of I don't know if it's solanines or the things in nightshades.
Yeah.
You can get rid of those and taking the peel off. You can take the peel off tomatoes or peppers, and you get rid of a lot of those anti-nutrients. So that's traditionally they would do that. They would take the peels off.
Which is why you'd cook the pepper on the flame, right? And probably peel it.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
But we didn't even have peppers. Peppers are a very new invention. A lot of these are very new inventions. But I was going to mention Weston Price because he went around the world. I'm obsessed with Weston Price. He went around the world 100 years ago studying ancient cultures, like these cultures that didn't eat processed foods, and they were still healthy. He was a dentist, and he saw all these people with messed up teeth, right? This was the 1930s in the U.S., and he said, well, why would we be around as a species if we couldn't eat, if our teeth were falling out and crooked and had cavities? And he found around the world that there was all these populations that had perfect teeth, wide dental arches, big jaws. They didn't have to have their teeth removed. I had like 8 teeth removed. And I'm actually getting a palate expander to expand it. I have to wear this thing every night that expands my jaw again, and it builds new bone and widens my jaw again.
That sounds painful.
It's fine. But he went out in the world and found all these cultures that were still super healthy. They didn't have the chronic diseases. They had amazing teeth, and they all had the same practices, even though they were completely unconnected to each other, right? They had no way. He went to Africa and Melanesia, Micronesia. He went to the Swiss Alps. He went to Australia, and he found that they had these same traditions. So that's why I thought of it. It's because humans are genius, right? We figured out the same things, even though we're completely not connected. And a lot of them were these traditional preparation techniques. But the biggest thing that I think is important is that we all had traditions around pregnancy, and we would give the woman and even the man certain foods because we knew how to make a healthy human. And they just figured out by trial and error, and they figured out all over the world. And it was always the animal foods. It was always the most nutrient-dense animal foods. And it was the organ meats. It was fat. It was full-fat dairy, raw dairy. It was eggs. It was seafood. It was fat, bone marrow. It was bone broth. This was all these different cultures. Whatever they had access to, they would use those animal foods and give them to pregnant women or even men who wanted to conceive. They would give that to these special foods, these highly prized foods, to these people because they knew it made healthy humans. So he's the one who actually discovered vitamin K2 and some of these vitamins and minerals that are only in animal foods, or these fat-soluble vitamins that help humans be healthy.
It blows my mind how much nutrition isn't taken seriously during pregnancy, and we kind of make jokes about it, like where the wife is demanding that the husband go out and go get, Taco Bell or cup.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like you're growing something really important in there, and what you put into your body absolutely is going to affect that kid one way or another. When I just had my recent one, I was the only mom on the floor in the recovery. I think there was like 38 of us that night. So they leave the little tap in you in case they need to do like intravenous iron, because I guess it's very common to be deficient after labor. I was the only woman on the floor that didn't need it. And she was just like, well, what were you eating? I was like, I was eating red meat twice a day, every day for my last trimester, which probably it was really not easy, but they make a lot of breakfast sausages and stuff now, so you can have it more throughout the day. That's more palatable if you're not used to it. But I was the only one doing it. And she's just like, wow, good for you. And I'm like, that is crazy to me. That's so crazy to me. And everyone thought I was nuts. They're like, that's a lot of red meat. I was like, it's fine. It's fine. Baby's thriving.
I love that. I love it. Oh man, I have all these people in Austin, all these new moms, and they do that all. And Weston Price, they have a whole foundation. They have cookbooks. They have all this stuff. And so a lot of we call them like the Weston Price babies, and they are giant and strong. And they're either the biggest, the ranges.
Yeah.
They're always at the top. They always are super healthy. The moms say they don't have morning sickness. The moms have stories like that. They're like, I'm just healthy. I'm just healthier than any mom. I didn't have a problem even giving birth. I have a good friend of mine. Their midwife didn't show up in time, and they just did it themselves.
Yeah.
Completely by themselves.
Yep.
Just They just did it. I'm like, that's how humans used to be. This
Capable.
is what we found in Africa. I went with this woman, Mary, who is a great nutritionist, Mary Ruddick, and she asked all the good questions about women's health and this and that. And they're like, no, we don't have painful periods. No, we don't have trouble giving birth. No, we don't have, our time of the month and, have problems. It's kind of funny. The guys too, we asked the guys, like, do you have back pain? The older gentlemen, do you have knee pain? Do you have back pain? Like, what is that? We're like, do you have back pain? They're like, what are you talking about? We had a translator. And they're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, does your back hurt? They're like, oh yeah. He fell out of a tree last month and his back hurt. I'm like, no. So he just doesn't have back pain as an older man? They're like, no.
Wow. Because you would just couple that. You would just think chronic pain is just something that happens with age and you just have to accept it.
That's what happened to me. That's part of my story. I was turning 30 and I was just becoming that guy, the dad bod. It's like, oh, you can't eat whatever you want anymore. Oh, I can't play sports anymore. My knees hurt. I had acid reflux. I had allergies. I had joint pain, all this stuff. I'm like, this is my life now. Changed the way I was eating. Well, actually, I told the story in the intro. I lost both my parents around that time. So I had to, wake up, make some changes. And I changed the way I ate. And I really just made some simple changes. I got rid of some of these processed foods. Really, what Weston Price found is all these cultures, as soon as the sugar, flour, oil, it's basically the refined grains, refined sugars, and vegetable oils came into their diet, they got sick. So I'm kind of jumping around, but that's what he found. So they all had the good practices of eating the animal foods and the nutrient-dense animal foods, and they all didn't have these 3 ingredients that make up basically all processed foods, especially today. It's like 80% of foods people eat are made up of those 3 ingredients. So 10 years ago, I'm almost 40. I'm way better than I was when I was 30. I'm playing beach volleyball for 3 hours and having no problems and feel great. I'm like a better athlete than I was at 30. And I have no allergies anymore. Well, really, if I eat a little bread, I can have some allergies. Actually, it's weird. So they can come back, but I generally got rid of my allergies. Acid reflux, never again. 0 times. I used to be, taking Tums and all this stuff. Joint pain, no more joint pain. So all I did was get rid of those 3 ingredients, which could be hard for people because, like I said, 80% of food.
The seed oils and everything.
The seed oils and everything. The added sugars and everything. Refined grains are in everything. And I mean, I just got rid of those and it all went away. But again, I don't want to just say that everyone has to do that, but it's generally a pretty good recommendation for anyone, right? It's like, why does any good diet work? Well, you're probably getting rid of seed oils, refined grains, or added sugars, or all 3 of them.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So we talked about liver and like organ meat a little bit, and I feel like that's one of those like sensational topics because obviously Liver King made his whole like his proclamations, and then there's like these freeze-dried liver pills that you can take now that are kind of like a supplement or a vitamin. Is there a difference between having it like fresh and cooking it versus freeze-dried? And then you have Michaela, who's very vocal about you don't need organ meat at all. I guess her and her dad don't eat it at all.
She changed recently.
Oh, did she?
She did. This was only a few weeks ago, I think, where she came out and said, you know what, guys, I was wrong. I got a test. I got my, mineral analysis, and I am very low in, I forget which mineral. And she said, I am eating liver now.
Oh, wow. Okay. I must have read that wrong because I saw her post her dad's results and she's like, this is with no liver. And I took it as like, see, I don't need it.
How recently was that, though?
It was, the last couple weeks.
Well, maybe it was just, maybe he is doing okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know it is
I
a
didn't
hot
see
debate.
hers. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a hot topic in the nutrition world. And I'm on the side of eating nose to tail and eating organs. I'm not saying you have to do it like Liver King. Like that was a sensationalism, like marketing stunt, basically. And he's just gnawing on things. I mean, that's not evolutionary consistent either. Like I was with the Hadza. I mean, yes, the first thing we did when we got an animal, I went hunting with them. We opened it up and we ate the liver. But it was this little deer. It's called a tic-tic or dick-tic or tic-tic. I never know how to say it. But, it's like this liver. It's like this big. It's not big. And there's a lot of guys and we each got a little piece. That's what we did throughout history. We didn't gnaw on a 5-pound liver by ourselves. So I think that's the answer, is that you can eat an evolutionary appropriate amount of liver and organs, and that would probably be ideal. and give you a whole bunch of nutrients. I mean, we know the nutrition content of liver. There's tons of vitamin A and iron and B12 and tons of copper. Actually, copper is a great source of copper. Just great nutrients that you're not going to really get elsewhere. And then to answer the question about the supplements, yeah, I mean, freeze dry. It's not a bad way to process them. You don't lose that much. We don't think there's not super hard evidence of, I think it's generally considered that you're probably getting 90% there. And so why not, if you're not going to eat the liver, take a pill.
Can you like overdo it with the liver? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are getting worried about vitamin A toxicity.
Okay.
There is like 2,000% vitamin A in liver. But that's what I'm saying. Don't do liver king.
Don't do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people are overblowing it. They're going the other direction where they're like, you can't eat liver. You're going to get vitamin A toxicity. No, that's not going to happen to most people. I mean, no one wants to eat that much liver, right? Your body probably doesn't want that much liver. I mean, I eat, a little bit of liver per week, and I think that's fine. So, yes, don't go crazy.
How do you make yours to where it's like you enjoy it, or do you enjoy it, or is it something you just stuff
I
down?
don't enjoy it. I wasn't raised with it. I think some people are raised. I have a friend, Dr. Gary, his parents are Russian, and they just eat liver all the time, and he loves it. For me, I made my own product, actually.
Oh, did you?
Well, my company's called Nose to Tail. I like that all these guys keep saying Nose to Tail. Like, it's like a...
Free promo.
It is. Liver King says it all the time. Paul Saladino says it all the time. Yeah, the company's Nose to Tail, but our main product is primal ground beef, so we put the organs in the ground beef. So we put liver, heart, kidney, and spleen in it.
Oh,
so it's
that's
just
cool.
like a burger patty.
Yeah.
And so that's how I do it. That's the main way I get liver because it tastes great. And you can add a little seasoning. It doesn't taste bad. You could taste like a little bit of something.
Like minerally.
Little minerally.
Yeah.
It just tastes rich to me.
Yeah.
But you make a burger patty out of it and you maybe add a little seasoning. And I think that's the best way. Some people also, you can cut it up into little tiny things and you can freeze it. And then you can take it out and thaw it a little and just swallow it.
Oh, okay.
So raw liver, little capsule type things. Yeah.
So your company, it ships everywhere?
Yeah, 48 states.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out. I'm going to order some.
I'm telling you, it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, you were also saying you started a community, right? Of like-minded. What's the name of the community?
It's called Sapien Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I did all this online stuff over the years, and I've been making the film, and I've kind of built this whole community around Food Lies before it even existed, which is kind
That's
of
why I was looking for it. I was like, it has to be out here somewhere, and I just suck at searching for it.
Yeah, people think that, and it's just not out yet. It's just such a big project. But along the way, I started a podcast called Peak Human. I was interviewing all these great scientists and doctors. Like, I need to just have a podcast. I started a Nose to Tail company just along the way too, because I didn't want to have sponsors to my podcast. So I just sponsored my own show. And then the last thing I did was the Sapien Center, which is just bringing that community into real life. And, especially with COVID, everyone's like, let's do real life stuff, guys. Like, I never stopped doing real life stuff.
I didn't either. No.
I had a good crew that we were like, we're not scared of this.
No.
So we did our real life stuff, but now we have, a home base for that. And we have outdoor workouts. People are there right now. Well, it's nighttime now, but people are there, doing an outdoor workout, no shoes, no shirt. They're working outdoors in the sun, doing take a computer and sit in a chair. We got sauna, cold plunge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is the dream. I think this is where the world is heading,
I hope so.
I think so. I think there's going to be two separate societies. I mean, one's going to be way bigger than the other. The people on this Wall-E train, did you ever watch Wall-E?
Yeah. My kid's obsessed with it.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a reality soon. So I think most of the world is just going down that processed food. Like, they're going to end up in scooters, being carted around.
Watching their screen.
Yep. And then there's going to be this small portion of people, hopefully listening to this show, that reject that and just eat real foods and do outdoor workouts and have community. Half of it's just community too, right? Like your mindset stuff. I mean, that is right on. Like the blue zones, that's a whole nother rabbit hole because
that's faked too, right? That's what I
Yes.
heard is they were like plucking out communities that ate a lot of meat that were technically in that zone. And they're like, no, we're going to ignore
ignored that.
Spain.
They ignored that. They ignored even in Ikigai in Greece, the same woman, Mary, she's going around the world visiting these blue zones, debunking them. And they're just eating lamb and goat and milk and organs. And they are not plant-based. But Dan Buettner had an agenda and went out to prove it. But I brought it up because I think one of the main things that these communities had in common, well, for one, they were eating whole foods. So they were eating animal foods. Dan Buettner was trying to claim not a lot, but they were eating basically all whole foods. So I think that's a good diet no matter what. If you're only eating whole foods, most people are not doing that at all. Very few people are actually eating whole food diets. And maybe even more important is they have the other factors, the sense of community, the sense of purpose, the being outdoors, like being in nature. These places, they had old people who were still living in the houses with the whole family, and they were working until the day they died. And that could be one of the most important things.
What's it called? Ichiro, or what's the Japanese word?
Harihachibu? Well, that's a different one. Harihachibu means eat till you're 80% full.
No.
Which is a separate thing.
No, it's a Japanese word for purpose.
Oh.
So there's like the one island that's like right off of Japan. It has
Okinawa?
Maybe. It has
Okinawa is where the long-lived population is.
Okay, so it's got to be there. And they use the word, I'm going to Google it.
Maybe I've heard of this word.
Hold on.
It means sense of purpose. That means
Japanese word for, I think it starts with an I. Ichu.
People would know this. I'm from
Ikigai.
Hawaii. Oh, Ikigai. Okay.
Yeah. So they were saying, and a similar thing is like you have these 100-plus-year-old men or women that are still living in the house with everyone else, and they attribute a lot of why they're able to live so long is like they're not like shoved away and sanitized, and we don't want to see that because it reminds us of our own, the fact that we're going to age and die as well. So like, let's get rid of the old people to make ourselves more comfortable. Like, no, they're integrated in the community. They wake up, they have their chores, they help participate, and that's a huge factor into it. And which is what drove me so crazy during like the whole like pandemic was like, let's isolate and see how well everyone thrives under those conditions, when we know that's like the worst punishment you could give to a person, right? If you have kids, the worst thing you could do is like make them go in their room by themselves. There's nothing else I could do that would make my kid more upset. Same with a person, right? If you're in jail, what's the worst thing you do?
Yeah, solitary.
Right.
Absolute worst.
Let's
Nightmare.
break people.
I don't want to get into COVID.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
You're going to get kicked off of YouTube if we start talking about it. I almost got kicked off of YouTube because I started talking about all this stuff.
About the need for community?
No, just about how it was so backwards, everything we did during the COVID years. So backwards. And yes, isolation, community, it just goes against everything we know about human health.
Yeah.
Telling people they can't even work out outdoors. I was in LA. I was in Venice Beach. They put chains around outdoor workout equipment. I couldn't go do pull-ups because there was chains around it. They closed the beaches. It's like, I just wanted to get some vitamin D. I just wanted to go outside. My pool was closed. They locked it up. I jumped over the fence, got kicked out, and I had nowhere to go. I just want to get outdoors. I want to do a workout. I want to get vitamin D. I want to see people. I want to eat real food. They closed all the real food places, left open the drive-thrus.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a little park in the community, and our, I guess whoever is like the HOA or whatever, took saran wrap and caution tape and did the whole park, and the parents were like, fuck that, and they ripped it off. And it happened like 3 times, and eventually like we quit, take the park. Like, you can't do this to the kids. That's crazy. Like, you need to see people. It's fundamentally wrong. There was somewhere I was going to go with that.
Well, it's good that you're here in North Carolina. Like,
it wasn't
LA, California was terrible. I had to leave California. It was a nightmare.
That's what drove you to Austin?
Yeah. Well, I've been visiting Austin for 8 years before. So I knew what was going on. There's a big health community there. So I knew there was this movement that is ever growing.
We're toying with the idea of going there. We keep like looking. I have a couple houses saved on Realtor that I keep checking, and I don't know, I feel like a tiny little tug. But we'll see.
It's a special place.
Did you have like friends there before you moved?
Yeah. There's a health community. I call it the ancestral health community. Like, that's generally what these people we've been talking about, like Liver King or Paul Saladino or paleo diets or even keto diets. Like, all these things are kind of generally in this ancestral health space, which just means let's go back to the way we used to live. And it was all about community. It was all about having purpose and being outside and just all these basic things that are human.
No, I hope that we see like a huge shift there. We talk about like our parents aging and what that looks like, because so I'm like part Japanese. So with Asians, like you don't shove your parents into a home. That's unheard of. I'm like, I just don't know why in the West that's just so common. And he's like, what, you're gonna let my parents move in? And I was like, well, if they need to, yeah. That relationship isn't exactly like always easy, but it's like, what's the right thing to do? And then what do you want to model for your kids as well? It's like, do you stop mattering after a certain age or no, right?
Well, I'm from Hawaii, born and raised, and
Oh, really?
yeah, the guy making my film with me is full Japanese actually. But yeah, a lot of Asian parents living in households. Yeah, it's very normal in Hawaii. That's why I should have known Ikigai. I knew Harhachibu at least.
No, they have some great words. There's also the one, which is so interesting because we look to Japan a lot for a good model of health, because we look at a small island like that, but they also have that word, which is escaping me, for working yourself to death. And that's kind of uniquely Asian as well. So it's like very, very polar opposite ways of living. You're like literally people collapsing in subways and people just thinking that they're asleep. So that's not good either.
I do remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you do anything, we talked about mindset a little bit. Do you do anything as far as like meditation practices that you like, or how do you take care of your mind as well as your body?
I'm probably not the best at that.
No.
I focus on the kind of focus on these 5 pillars. I think sleep is a huge one. I didn't get enough sleep last night, and it's bothering me. I'm like, how am I going to make up for this? Like, I need to go take a nap, or I always get sleep. I think there's a big correlation with Alzheimer's and not getting enough sleep.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And it makes sense. Like, your brain needs to repair, and you need to sleep. And it seems like you can get away with it for a while, and then all of a sudden you can't. And I remember sort of this well-known doctor talking about how he would visit Alzheimer's wards, and they would all be these older men who were like big-time CEOs that never slept. There were these people that just had a lifetime of not sleeping. So the way I take care of my mind is by sleeping, by working out, by being out in the sun and being in nature, by eating the right food, and then I guess the only like kind of mindfulness stuff I do would be, I guess, sauna, cold plunge, like sort of breathing. I'm getting more into like breathing techniques. So I feel like I'll get to meditation soon enough through those breathing techniques.
Yeah, I just started this course through Ziva, and it's really great so far. I'm a terrible meditator, and like I just need to move a lot, so sitting very still is difficult for me. But she does a really good job at getting you kind of settled. Like the other day I was doing it in this chair, and I thought I was gonna like fall and smack my head. She just gets you super deep really quickly. But yeah, like the breath work I think is a lot easier. I've talked about this one app a couple of times. So have you ever used Othership, or do you know anything about it?
No.
So they were also founded during COVID. So their community was locked down, couldn't do anything. So he started kind of like a social club out of his garage where they had one sauna and they made a cold plunge, and then it was just kind of the neighbors, and it started scaling out to where all of a sudden it was 100 people coming to his garage to do breath work together, do the cold plunge and do the sauna. And he's like, there's something here. People are craving it. And he created like an online app that has really great breath work in it. So
where did it start?
I want to say Canada.
Oh, this would be
Robbie
really
Beck?
wild. Yes.
Yeah, I know him.
No
Yeah,
way. I
yeah.
know. Okay.
Yeah, we're friends.
That is amazing. So he got referred to me because I have a great friend in Canada. I think Christy's the one that recommended me, but we did a whole breathwork class.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like 2.5 years ago. Okay. I do know Othership.
Super
That is
small
amazing,
world.
yeah.
I think he's getting one in Miami, and I don't know if the one in New York is open or not, but he's expanding, and it's like turning into a thing. And who would have thought, right? Just from something where he's like, people need to do stuff in person, and he's doing
beautiful.
great.
We had to do it over Zoom, but he's in Canada. But yeah, good music too, right?
The music's awesome,
Yeah.
which I loved, and it sounds so simple, but it really gets you into the place that you need to be. They have like cold plunge breath work that you can do. They have couples stuff, which is really awesome. It gets a little woo, which I totally am into. Yeah, they have like manifestation breath works, and it's great.
We have those at the Sapiens Center. Actually, that's what happens. There's a lot of just they had sound bath and breathwork things going on. And yeah, people need to just find a community and do this stuff.
See, and that's why I'm like, Austin's the place, because it's like that's something that would thrive there. And here, people kind of look at you like you're crazy. Like, oh, I have a nice bath or out back. Like, why do you do that?
Oh, you belong in Austin. I'm telling you, there's thousands and thousands of people that are about this. There's so many communities popping up. And I think they should be around the world. I don't want to just like hype Austin. I mean, this should be a movement around the world.
Scale it out.
Yeah, well, we are trying to see if we can do Sapiens, or, around the world. But
how does Sapiens differ from like other popular diets or lifestyles that are out there right now? Like, what's your protocol?
Well, the thing is, it's not down one path, right? It's not paleo or keto or carnivore or Whole30. It's somewhere in between all of those. And it's just based on ancestral health. So paleo is interesting because, well, it's like based on this theoretical paleo diet. But then they're just like, oh, well, you can't have dairy because we didn't supposedly have dairy back then. And my stance is, well, if you're eating good raw dairy from a local grass-fed farm, and maybe it's great, why do we need to make these arbitrary rules? Dairy is actually hugely important to a ton of the world. If you're looking at all these other countries like India, they don't eat a lot of meat, right? A lot of the religion doesn't allow meat, but they're doing okay through dairy. And there's a lot of studies that I've looked at actually that show how dairy is very important to a lot of the world just for that nutrition. Like, it's good nutrition. So yeah, we don't just X out things because of certain rules. The idea of Sapien diet and lifestyle is, well, like I was saying, what's the 3D chess version? Like, what works and what doesn't and why? And it's about nutrient density. A lot of it comes to nutrient density, right? If you're going to get kind of nerdy about it. The thing is, people don't like to talk about nutrient density. They want to tell you, what do I eat?
Yeah.
Like, eat a steak. That's why carnivore is popular. It's like, just eat steak.
Steak and butter.
Yeah, it's simple. And then it works, right? For a while.
My nanny she jumped on that train for a day. And I was like, well, if you really want to do it, I was like, and I told her I'm not supporting that, but if you want to do it, like, ease into it. And she's like, okay, doesn't ease into it, and then is sick for the entire 24 hours. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm just watching these TikToks of people eating like these massive ribeyes just soaked in butter. I'm like, of course it's going to make you sick. You can't just jump into that.
Well, your gallbladder is not ready to digest all that fat.
It's a lot.
Well, so yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do diets, but it's like you got to focus on what's real, and what's real is nutrient density. And so yes, there could be any number of popular diets that sound good or they can work in the short term, but what works in the long term are diets that are nutrient dense. So like, what does that mean? Well, it's protein and nutrients, it's your amino acids and vitamins and minerals, and then it's energy. So I talked about energy as either fat or carbs. So this is kind of this concept that we're going to put in the film to understand diets on all levels. It's not just the named diets. Like, your diet doesn't need a name. Your body doesn't need a named diet. It needs nutrients. It needs protein and vitamins and minerals, and it needs the correct amount of energy from fat or carbs or both. And so basically, whole foods, especially animal foods, have that correct nutrient density. Especially animal foods have bioavailable protein and nutrients. Like, we're talking about rice and beans, they don't have the full proteins you need. Together they kind of do, but animal foods are just more nutrient dense in general. So that's why carnivore diets can work, because they have tons of protein and nutrients, and they don't have too much energy unless you're dumping butter on it. Then maybe you could get into trouble. But does that make sense? Kind of this protein, this like nutrient to energy idea. It's like, for all of history, we only had whole foods at our disposal, and they all kind of had different nutrients and energy, but as a whole, they gave us the correct amount of each. When you start processing foods in this industrial modern way, you basically throw that balance way off. And so you're getting less nutrients, less protein, less vitamins and minerals, and way more energy. You're adding in cetos, you're adding in refined sugars and extra grains and stuff. So a simple reason why those are bad, other than you could get into the details of like the microbiome and gut health and glyphosate and hormones and all these other things, right? For sure, you can get into all that. But in a simple sense, you could just say, well, you're getting very low nutrients and too much energy because that's what's cheap and what's food processors make and what has a long shelf life. And that's just what people eat. and it's not working. So there's this thing called the protein leverage hypothesis. I hope I'm not getting too nerdy here.
No,
Okay.
nerd out.
Protein leverage hypothesis is a well-established thing in the literature that scientists have discovered that all animals, basically any organism, eats to get a certain amount of protein. So they started in like crickets or something, and they're like, these crickets, they gave them this meal, like cricket meal, and it had the amount of protein they needed, right? Whatever. Crickets need 10% protein, and they gave it to them, and they ate the right amount, and they were perfectly good crickets. Then they gave these crickets, or mice, I'll use rodents because it's easier. Then they gave the mice low protein, so it had extra like carbs or fats, lower protein. The mice just had to eat more of that food to get the protein, right? So they did all the math, and they're like, okay, these mice who ate the lower protein, basically a version of processed foods, they had to eat more of it to get the same amount of protein. And they did. It's like these mice got 10% protein in their food. They ate the right amount to get this mice group had 6% protein. I'm making up these numbers. They had to eat this much more to get to that 10% mark that they needed. And so I think this is really just a huge example of what went on in the last 50 years. Since 1980, when we talked about how it skyrocketed since then, and we put out the food pyramid and the dietary guidelines where it's 7 to 11 servings of grains as the base. What did that do? That lowered, so people are eating less meat. They're eating more pasta and low-fat products and carbs and breads and fat. I don't blame it on carbs. So now we're getting much lower protein and nutrients and much higher energy. So people just had to eat more to get what their body needed. This is what humans have always known. We just knew we needed this amount of protein and nutrients, and we instinctively ate till we got there. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think so, yeah.
Because people, there is more to it, because people eat for all kinds of reasons. People eat because they're sad or they're lonely or bored.
Yeah.
They eat because it's a social occasion. They eat for all these different reasons. But then I'd say, well, yes, you ate that, but then why did you eat again? Like, why didn't you, if you ate so much of this food, then why aren't you full for the correct amount of time? It goes back to the satiety part. It goes back to the losing weight as a battle of hunger. So if you were able to eat, if you eat foods that don't have any protein and nutrients, that don't fill you up, then of course you're just going to eat again, right? So if you're eating the wrong foods, you're going to lose that battle, right? That's an example of the potato chips. You can eat a whole bag of potato chips, right? And
aren't they designed to do that? Like basically, like something about eating something that's crunchy automatically, we won't trigger the
satiety sensor
in your brain, yeah.
Something like that. I think it's a lot of things. There's 3 things. There could be that. Could be the bliss point, they call it, where they get the right salty, crunchy, fat, sugary flavor. And then I think the third thing is that there's no protein. There's no, and all the foods that people binge eat on, there's never protein and nutrients. It's like, it's just cupcakes and chips and fries. And it's just stuff that's like fat and carbs mixed together. There's also this idea that the fat and carbs together is just really dangerous, that we're wired to eat that. And it's not really found in nature.
Yeah, I was, I think it's in Grain Brain where they talk about that. And then like that can, I think he was saying like that's the main issue that you have, and it can lead to the gut-brain permeability, which then goes into neurodegenerative disorders. But I read that a long time ago, so I don't know if that's true.
David Perlmutter?
Yeah.
So I think you kind of mix 2 concepts, but
Okay.
yes. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about the dangers of eating the high fat and high carbs at the same time, and then it tricks your brain. It takes advantage of this kind of evolutionary desire to get energy, because throughout history we didn't always have enough energy to get through the day. And then also, yes, if you're eating these highly refined foods, that especially fat and carbs, then you will have blood sugar problems that would cause like the brain, like type 2 diabetes would be the main metabolic issue, but people call these days, they call Alzheimer's and dementia type 3 diabetes, which it's kind of like being insulin. Type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance, and it's basically being insulin resistant of your brain. Like your brain is not getting the signal. You've basically broken down that signaling, and it can't get glucose, so it's running out of an energy source because you've fried it. I guess that's a layman's way to say it.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, I haven't heard that. I think the only thing I was reading was that if you have low cholesterol, which is something we've always tried to like aim towards, that is actually a higher indicator of potentially being at risk for dementia or Alzheimer's.
Your brain needs cholesterol. It needs saturated fat. Like, this is what the human brain was built on. And yes, it's a huge shame that we told people to avoid it for so long. And I think it's causing tons of problems.
Yeah.
And you see it in vegans. There's some of these famous vegans that are getting older and their brain is fried. I watched a video of this guy. I won't mention his name. He's a mess. It seems like his brain doesn't work anymore. And it's just he has no cholesterol in his brain. He has no, it's just, it needs those fats.
Yeah, my mom will be like, my cholesterol is a tiny bit high. I'm going to stop eating this. I was like, no, you need to eat the whole egg. You need to eat the burger because she's grew up in, bodybuilding and egg whites only and lean chicken breast. And I'm like, you're getting older. Like, please listen to me and just like eat these things. It's fine.
Well, in elderly people, there's actually there's a correlation of the higher cholesterol is the better. So you should short those studies. We got to dig up those studies.
Yeah.
That it actually in the literature it shows that it's more protective and they have a longer life if they have higher cholesterol levels.
See, she's worried about obviously gaining weight, which I think a lot of them are. But I've heard you say that and I've also read this, I can't remember where, but somewhat recently, that your metabolism doesn't actually slow down when you age. So if that's true, then what is happening?
Okay. Now you're bringing up Michael Rose. So Dr. Michael Rose is a legendary aging researcher. He was one of the people we just filmed with on our last film tour with 10 people in 10 days. We went to UC Davis where he's just about to retire. He did 50 years of aging research. And he did a lot of the famous fruit fly research that kind of showed, because they live a very short time, you could do lots of generations and we can look at study aging. And so he basically coined this idea that it's not that your metabolism slows down as you get older. It's that you're less adapted to the modern food environment, right? And the modern food and environment. So modern diet and lifestyle is bad for all people, but you can get away with it more when you're younger. That's kind of the idea. It kind of flips it on the head. It's not that your metabolism slows down. It's that you could get away with things more when you're younger. And certain people can get away with it longer. That's kind of what, you're like, oh, well, this guy, he's just eating whatever he wants and he's fine. Well, maybe he does have, some better genetics of being able to be adapted to the modern diet and lifestyle, but it still will catch up to you eventually. And so one of his ideas is that we can live a lot longer than we think. And that he wrote a book called Does Aging Stop? And his idea is that it can you can kind of coast. If you are eating the correct diet and lifestyle, which means going back to our roots, these ancestral diets, then we can sort of coast and maybe we can live a lot longer if we don't, have some cancer or maybe you don't even get cancer, but you can just keep living longer and longer. And that his idea is, hey, maybe our ancestors lived way longer. We just don't even know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's kind of Peter Attia's work, right? Is longevity and kind of for lack of better words, it's like biohacking or optimizing your way there so that you can coast. And the way that he's kind of explained it is you are able to function at like the 50th or even higher percentile, even into old age. And then like the last year or so is where you see the decline. And that right now is kind of inevitable. But like the drastic, like the chronic back pain that we talked about earlier, like doesn't have to be part of the equation. You just have to like do the proper protocol in order to have that healthy longevity.
Yeah, he's talking about extending your health span is a big thing that we're all Peter's into, everyone's into. It's that someone actually asked me this. I showed the intro to my film at South by, small little South by thing, and someone was like, "Well, we're living a lot longer now. We're doing fine. We're living so much longer." It's like, yeah, we're dying longer. Mm-hmm. Just because we're propped up in nursing homes and we have crazy medications and protocols to save people's lives, that is not good. We want to be healthy longer. This is what he's talking about. We want a longer health span, not necessarily a super long lifespan if you're stuck in a home. Have you heard of Mark Sisson?
I don't think
He's
so.
a legend. Mark Sisson is 68 and he's the fittest guy I know. He's ripped. He's plays ultimate frisbee with 20-year-olds. We went and filmed with him. He's in Miami. He's living his best life. He's out there paddleboarding, like getting sun. He's just the man. He started Primal Kitchen. Primal Kitchen's like a big brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just had an exit.
Yeah. Now he's just hanging out in Miami doing what I just said. Yeah, he's actually started my journey when my journey started about 9 years ago, right? When I was about 30, I read his book and it's called The Primal Blueprint. And he kind of just said all this stuff. He's like, yeah, cut out seed oils and refined grains and added sugar and eat more meat and you're good.
Yeah. It sounds too simple though. When you say it, you're like, well, what else are you holding out?
That's
like
it.
there's something else.
That's what people do. That's all the people I know in Austin. People come to the Sapien Center and they're just like, is this a different breed of human? Why does everyone look so good? Why is everyone so healthy and happy and vibrant? Like, I don't know. We just eat meat and whole foods on the side and we hang out together. I don't know. And we do a little workout once in a while.
I see a huge movement for the raw dairy that you've brought up. So why is that illegal?
Oh, it's like all things that big institutions touch and big governments. It's always bad for the individual. It's good for them to have control. And, I say control loosely. Like control, if you're trying to control or manage hundreds of millions of people, you have to just do stuff like have all these rules about we have to pasteurize dairy because, back in the day, 80 years ago, they didn't have perfect sanitation and there was like listeria or, there was some problem with the milk and someone got sick. So now we're pasteurizing it, which gets rid of all of the nutrients and all the enzymes you need. It doesn't get rid of all the nutrients. It gets rid of most of the enzymes you need. Yes, it denatures some of the nutrients and gets rid of a lot of the enzymes you need to digest it. So that's why some people think they're lactose intolerant, but they eat raw dairy and they can handle it because it has the enzymes that your body needs to digest it. But I kind of get it. I don't agree with it, but I kind of get it. They're just saying, hey, we need to not have people sick and we're just going to have all these rules. And then big business kind of pops up around it. It's like now we're paying all these people. It's kind of just these big like tax dollars just going to things. And then all of a sudden you have all these rules about meat and there's meat processing rules and there's rules about everything now.
Texas has loopholes though around buying and selling meat, right? So it's like the only state in the country where you can directly buy from someone or something like that.
Actually, I don't know all that, but there's something
There's
good.
something special
There's
about the way you
something
can purchase meat in Texas.
Yeah. And it's interesting that like half the states you can buy raw milk and half you can't. And Texas just changed it kind of recently where you can get raw dairy, but it has to be from the owner of the cow. It has to be from the farmer.
Okay.
But you can do like pickup points. So it's like you can have a milk pickup point and
It's hysterical though, yeah. Kind of like a prohibition workaround on milk, which sounds ridiculous.
No, I know people that pick it up in church parking lots, like they do like shady deals, It's real.
So is the A2 any better as far as a nutrient density, or that's just more for digestive, like
that's
easier
just
digestion?
Protein. It's just a different type of protein. And yes, I think A2 is better.
Okay. Yeah, we switched to that. I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be significant or not, but I heard it's better, so let's try it out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was incredible. You would never know that you didn't sleep, that you've been traveling all day.
Oh, yeah.
Before we close out, do you want to tell the viewers and listeners like where they can follow you, any projects you're working on, how they can support you, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Should I talk to the camera?
Yeah.
Hey,
break the
Food
wall.
Lies. Food Lies. I'm everywhere at Food Lies. So my Instagram is food.lies. I have a YouTube channel called Food Lies. Got to watch that intro. I'm telling you, we made almost every one of those shots. That took a long time. People, it's funny because I walk around and tell people I'm making a documentary and they're kind of like, oh, cool. Like, no one's going to watch it. Like their thought is no one's going to watch it. And I'm saying, no, we're going big. We're going to Netflix or Amazon Prime, HBO Go. We have a lot of interest lately. We're going big. This is a real thing. So check that out on the YouTube. And then, I have nosetotale.org. My meat. You can get it shipped to you. And Peak Human Podcast as well. I got too many things.
No, never. Diversify.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is awesome. Before you guys close out, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review if you haven't in a while. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go to chattingwithcandice.com and click that little link that says buy me a coffee. See you next week.